G'day folks, it's Elmo Raymond speaking, hope you're doing well, and today, well, I have to admit I'm doing a bit of a first impression video of the Pampa, and I have to say, folks, I'm a little bit disappointed about this warship because, first and foremost, I love destroyers. Second, I don't mind the daring and Jutland, but a couple of things I do appreciate most about this warship in a way. So let's just dive right into it. So the Pampa, it's a Pan-American destroyer, tier 10. I'm still working out the official review for this, but I'm just gonna go with what I've been thinking about it for the first impression video here. But for 10.5 kilometer range torps and the damage that it produces and 73 knots, if you spec it correctly, it's actually not too bad. It's quite half decent. And also the special ability that you can see here for the covert consumable readiness is actually pretty sweet. And also you got a lot of smoke, crawling smoke, as well as torp reload and well destroyers for healing, which is pretty rare, which is pretty cool as well too. A lot of things about this destroyer, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. Like, first and foremost, the Venom, the American destroyer Venom, for example, when I think about it, it has 10.5 kilometer range torps. It has pretty decent speed if you spec it correctly, and at the same time though that you have 2 torp bays on the left, 2 torp bays on the right, and the reload time for this is actually pretty much halved in compared to the Pampa. Now, in all seriousness though, that a couple other things I don't like about the Pampa is that the gun arc for shooting in the rear is like you only can shoot at the rear towards of your conning tower, but you have to be angled. And the thing is, there's just no rear gun turret at the back of the ship either. So it's a little bit of disappointment because I actually like the ability to be able to shoot back as well too from the rear guns. One thing I like about the Pampa overall, I mean, like the torp jolting is pretty cool. I mean, like I love firing widespread torps. I mean, like you can fire 3 widespread torps at the enemy, which is pretty cool. I mean, like I have to say, it's pretty decent. I don't know, I just like the destroyer itself. It reminds me of the Jutland, it reminds me of the Daring, but at the same time that this ship does remind me of some similarity mechanics of the Venom, for example, and many maneuverability and reaction timing of the Shimakaze, for example. This ship is actually pretty decent. I mean, like the crawling smoke is pretty nice. I actually like it, and the duration for the crawling smoke is actually pretty sweet as well too. Oh, look out, there's a whole bunch of incoming torps coming in, and I just nearly dodged it in the nick of time, which is pretty awesome. And looks like we got a Shimakaze engaging me at long range. It's actually kind of weird that, in terms of gunfight against the Shimakaze, that, I'll be honest with you, that the Pampa doesn't really stand a fighting chance unless you got some support with you that's willing to help you out in doing this. So overall, I just think that the Pampa is a little bit of weak against in gunfight against the enemy, and I'm actually just shooting 3 different spread of torps all over the place towards the Shimakaze and hoping to get him. Now, I have to admit that, in this battlefield, I mean, like, considering what I'm up against, it is a pretty hectic battle already, so it's going to be interesting to see how this battle unfolds. Mind you, though, I mean, like, I just think that the ship itself, the Pampa, is actually fairly good, in terms of responding to me when I'm maneuvering, but it's actually not too bad, though. Oh, I was not expecting that. Well, why, hello. The ship itself is, quite maneuverable, and the response time for it is actually not too bad. Oh, here comes something going towards. I'm probably going to die here, and I just caught 1, luckily, and oof, that's gotta hurt. Mind you, though, that I do feel that this destroyer, though, my first impression about it is that this destroyer is really used for escorting warships, not really designed for, you know, going in brawling or really rushing in and getting into the enemy straight away. So it's more like a kiting destroyer as such, but you don't have that engine boost. So the ship itself has a lot to be decided. The good thing about the La Pampa, if you pair it up with other warships, it's very good for torp memes. Now, generally speaking though, that if you use this warship purely for torp jousting against the enemy, you probably will find yourself that you're scoring yourself a bit of a better positioning to help out like your teammate, for example, if it's a battleship player, for example, and if they were forcing the enemy to turn for pure broadside, well, your battleship players will be able to, you know, snipe them at long range and actually take some effective citadel hits on the target now, for example. However, at the same time though, that if you're teaming up with a couple, you know, destroyer players, for example, depending on what destroyers you team up with, like for example, if you teamed up with like the Venom, for example, or Mini Gumo, or Harry Gumo, or Shimikaze, between the torps that you guys can create, you actually can cause a lot of havoc in the battlefield. This destroyer though, I mean, like when I first took it out many times over the last few days, I have been still mucking around with it. I'm still learning it, and honestly, my review for the La Pampa, it's not exactly a bit of a positive one, to tell you the truth. I have to admit that when I look at this warship, I actually do see a couple of positive things about it. Is that first and foremost, it's a nice, unique warship. It's fun to play with if you love, you know, like you know, spotting the enemy and shooting at long range and distracting the enemy at will. But the only trouble about this ship that I don't like is that, well, that there's no guns in the rear, so you have to, you know, go with what has been given on the ship at the moment, at this point in time. The design of the ship is pretty self-explanatory. You got 3 torp bays at the rear of the warship, and you got some AA defense. And oops, there's a whole bunch of torps here that's coming into my way. Better move out of the way. But the thing is that as I look at it, it's just that I don't feel that this ship is like something that you just go out and buy straight away. I mean, like, I have to admit that I bought this on the EU server and the NA server. On the NA server, well, I will admit I got it for around about, like, you know, 25,000 doubloons. Luckily, with the tokens that have been provided from, you know, the armory itself for the event, but that's with the coal resources and in-game currency that was used for the tokens as well. So between all that, it was actually not too bad. Whereas on the EU server, on the other hand, a little bit disappointed. I have to say that, you know, when I got like 50k doubloons, I was actually, you know, hoping that I wouldn't have to spend majority of it. I ended up spending nearly 40,000 doubloons just to get the warship. And that's with the, you know, coal resources and in-game resources as well too. So I was actually a little bit disappointed about that outcome, to tell you the truth. But the thing is that I just feel that the whole thing about the La Pampa, the event itself, was a bit of a huge letdown in my opinion. I just felt that it's like, you know, if you really want to buy this ship, you have to spend a lot for the tooth and the nail just to get this warship. In my opinion, and to be frank with you all, that you're probably better off, you know, going out there and buy, let's just see, like $300 worth of 50k doubloons and invest it into, let's just say, your Santa containers or your coupons and stuff like that, birthday coupons and things like that for World of Warships, and get double the amount. You'd probably be better off doing that and save the doubloons towards, you know, the Santa containers later this year. Well, anyways, I mean, like, let's just look at the, you know, the possibilities and outcomes of this right now. There's a lot of good things that I've seen here so far. I mean, like, the La Pampa is very maneuverable. It does respond quite well. The torp reload is actually something I love, enjoying using it, and also the heals of the ship as well too. which is pretty handy. One thing I actually felt a little bit annoyed about it was, like, you know, the gunfiring range on this thing. The gunfiring range on this warship, it's sort of like, you know, a give or take scenario, but, you know, 12.3 kilometer range is not too bad. But, you know, for what it's worth though, I mean, like, there's a whole bunch of other ships that you can find in the game that's actually a lot better to invest your time into. For example, if you were going for the Santa containers, for example, you'd probably be, you know, like, very, very happy and ecstatic if you actually got the Venom, because you got, like, you know, 2 torp bays on the port and starboard side, and on top of it all, you got, like, the, you know, rejuvenation of the longevity, I should say, about the smoke itself as well too. The funny thing about this destroyer, it doesn't have engine boost. But, you know, for what it's worth, this ship actually shows a little bit of promise though. I actually don't mind the La Pampa for teaming up with either destroyers, cruisers, or battleships. Like, for example, if you have a teammate that has, like, say for example, like a Shimakaze or another Daring or Jutland, for example, the two of you could go into town and actually cause a bit of havoc. For one of the reasons. Now, I have to admit that if you got a teammate who's a battleship player, if you team up with another destroyer and actually torp joust and distract them in one way, and another guy just torp joust and distract them another way, and you get a pure broadside opportunity to smack down an enemy warship, like the battleship or cruiser, you actually will find yourself, you know, getting some good, you know, kills and your team assisting your teammate there. So there's one thing to consider. The thing is that the one point that I can mention about the La Pampa is that this ship feels like it's more of a spotting / escort warship. It's not like a design for brawling as such. This warship though has a lot of merit. I do like a couple things about it, but it's just that I'm still trying to think about any good reason why I like the La Pampa. Now, the La Pampa itself, I mean, like, if I were to tell you that why I like the La Pampa, honestly, the torp jousting means. But at the same time, though, that I just feel that this ship has a good variety, you know, to maneuver away from the enemy quite well. It has that, you know, special ability for nerfing the cooldown on the consumables. The smoke, the crawling smoke is pretty nice. The gun firing, recharging and reload, all as such for this warship is actually pretty decent. Yeah, honestly, that'll be something I'm really keen to say. But overall, yeah, I just feel that there's a lot of things, you know, left to be desired on this for sure. Honestly, as I look about this, you know, destroyer for the torp reload and how it's going to be used, I mean, like, it's actually pretty nice. I mean, like, if you love the Asashio, for example, you can enjoy the torp reload in that. The torp reload booster is very handy for all cruisers, destroyers overall. So, you know, for what it's worth, I do respect the La Pampa to have that opportunity. Now, the overall hindsight of the, you know, the battle gameplay of this one, it's still like experimentation for me. I'm still learning, and honestly, I feel that this ship is a bit more situational. Now, if you were lucky to have a whole bunch of targets in one area and fire all your torps in that direction, you would definitely score some decent decisive blow hits. One thing I don't like about the La Pampa though is that the amount of damage it produces. Because, for example, the torp damage that it has done for this ship is actually not exactly considered to be strong compared to the other destroyers out there. For example, that if you were to throw like the Hullen, for example, you feel like you're playing the Hullen again 2.0 on the Pampa in this side of things. The funny thing about it all is that if you're looking for a destroyer that has best torp damage overall, to be fair, I like the Japanese cruisers and destroyers will have the better amount of damage overall. So the Americans will be second rate, but the La Pampa itself, it's just like, there's a couple of good things about it, but it's a bit of a letdown. The top range on the ship is actually pretty decent for being a 10.5. If you spec it correctly, you'll have a quite decent, like 73 knots on the commander build, depending on what you got. But yeah, I think that this ship is actually okay. I mean, like, it's just a lot to learn, a lot to be self-designed, but this is something I wouldn't brag about. I mean, like, the ship does have a lot of potential, but overall, that there were some things about the ship that I felt, back into my mind that it could have been better overall. But, for what it's worth, I mean, like, this ship does, have a lot of potential in the long term in the game, but it doesn't really make it suitable for clan battles or King of the Sea. I would be surprised if I saw this used in King of the Sea next year. But yeah, I mean, like, this ship is actually pretty decent just to have fun and muck around with overall. So yeah, I mean, like, if you were to ask me if it's worthwhile, buying the ship and actually, getting it outright, a lot of people would say it's better off as a collectible item. Some of us, like, we're just thinking that maybe it's probably, best to wait it out and see what the Christmas event will come into play. And speaking about that, I probably would have saved my money a lot more further into the Christmas event rather than investing into the La Pampa. I felt that La Pampa to me was a bit of a huge letdown for me, but overall the event itself, it could have been better. But I am still going to be doing an official review about this warship soon, folks. I just need some time to think about it because simply I was feeling mixed about my review on this one, but nevertheless it was a good warship to play with. Alright, take care folks, have a good one.